Hello, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Hi, how are you all doing? It's very, very nice to be here today. Adyam Nandi Parayadadu is to Abhichayan from Swasti Foundation, of course, who extended the invitation to come here. And Dr. Ansar, thank you for having me. Thanks for sending me that Abhichayan a note to forward about the topic that has been selected for my speech today. It was a very unusual, I've been asked to talk on this before, and I did find myself a little lost for words when it was connecting cinema and authentic storytelling and how it can actually give hope in cancer prevention, okay? Because there is, personally, if I speak about my journey, a lot of you already know about what I've been through, and I've spoken about personal strength and resilience and abstaining from toxicity and inflammatory conditions, be it in a domestic space, workspace, your internal environment, the quality of your thoughts, your words. I have emphasized on these things several times before, so I'm just hoping that it does not need to be repeated. So keeping all of that in light, yes, of course, all of you know that this is the 20th, I've actually just completed 20 years in cinema. And I was diagnosed when I was 24. And most often when it comes to cancer, you always think it is something that, at least when I was young, I thought it was something that would happen to other people. Now, who are these other people? Other people are people who are probably older, or people who are not taking care of themselves at all, probably cultivate bad habits, whatever is known to be bad in this world typically. And keeping all that in light, I was someone who always took very good care of myself. I was working out every day. I ate very clean. I did not drink in university. I did not smoke. I did not have any vices. I was everything. I was young. I was 24, but I was also one other thing. I was wrong. I was diagnosed with cancer at 24. And obviously, amongst all my friends, I was the laughing stock, because I was the only one who didn't party hard. I didn't join them because I was always a chicken, I had too much respect for everything that is taught to be spiritual and right. So there I was at 24. I had already started cinema at that time, 3 years into cinema. In fact, it was the year that I was just beginning to realize Passenger in the Parnure movie had just released at the time, and it had given me so much hope that, oh my God, Malayalam audience is going to love me again. And I had signed 3 or 4 films back to back. So it's a very interesting story. The news of the diagnosis came almost like a slap on my face. I obviously had to sign out of everything that, I had to give them a very bad news. In fact, at the time, one very respected director got very offended that I had come out of his film, because I could not even tell him what the reason was. I was not ready for it. Because you need to understand, 2009, the stigma very much prevailed about how you speak about cancer, about what kind of support, how people are going to look at you. Is the industry even going to want you again? Industry pote, even Samuham, the society. So there are challenges when it comes to having active cancer and being an active part of society and creating a difference and a change. But the truth is, I did manage to do that. And in that aspect, I would give a huge credit to the line of work that I was in at the time. In fact, there are 2 ways of looking at this. One is what it does for you personally, or what it did for me personally, being in cinema. 2 is how cinema and storytelling can impact lives for a positive change. We all know that media has a very strong influence. Positive health behavior cultivate in the media ഒരുപാട് help ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. But how it helped me personally was the pressure of having to look perfect, be perfect, appear perfect, play all these different roles perfectly. You always have to, I always had this pressure that was looming over my head, which was trying to appear as though nothing is wrong with me. I mean, just imagine what that pressure could have done to me in the years that I was fighting cancer. From a very human perspective. I'm going to chemos, but I have to come to location at a certain time where I have my wig on, have my makeup on. Literally, there was a phase where I looked like an egg. Everything had to be drawn on me. So the mental agony that one is going through at the time, and the topic that I have to speak on today is actually not very connected. You see where the disconnect is? So I struggled to pen down what I had to pen down. And in fact, I've written a whole speech, but I'm not even able to speak on it. But I do believe that cinema is a very, very powerful medium. And sadly, the way cinema has portrayed cancer or any terminal illness, today let us be specific to cancer. In cinema, it's always about, it looks like a death sentence as opposed to a diagnosis. In cinema, if someone is diagnosed with cancer, it's late detection. It's a struggle to fight it. And then, of course, that character is going to end before the climax of the film. So that character is not going to be anymore. And guess what? The worst part is when we find silence as a very dignified and a heroic act. Trust me, in real life, it is very, very different. For someone who's been through cancer, lived a very active life with active cancer, and also been through that whole 9 yards, I know how untrue that is. What we show in cinema is very, very far from reality. So I do believe that cinema can show characters who are fighting diseases that are terminal in a much more positive light. In fact, I was having a very detailed conversation with Ananya and Kuku Parameshwaran yesterday about how I wish to tell my story someday. In cinema, just imagine, in powerful storytelling, I think diagnosis where a woman is actually, let's say she's just going for a breast cancer screening in the middle of a busy day at work. Scenes like that can be very effectively written. A man who is talking about poor family health history, or let us say a mother who's talking about taking an HPV vaccination without fear, but with confidence. These sort of scenes can be imbibed into our scripts. And how can this be done? I think this is where there is a gap between what medicine knows and what society believes. Just imagine if researchers, scientists, or doctors can be involved in script curation, or in building a script, or in giving ideas, in delivering huge, in different perspective on narratives. This will change how stories are told on someone who is fighting cancer or anything that is terminal. It can be a more pleasant climax as opposed to something that we've been seeing, because I feel that we are not using cinema in its full potential to tell the right things about such diseases. So, of course, this cannot be only a filmmaker's or a scriptwriter's or an actor's responsibility. It has to be a collective responsibility. People also need to want to see, such a change. Ask and you shall receive, alle. What I'm trying to tell is, there is a gap that needs to be bridged. For me personally, what really has kept me lasting this long is definitely the kind of attention, the pressure, the stress that I've had to endure in my period that I was in cinema. Because see, you can't just survive. Now, every other month, I'm asked to be a part of speaking engagements to talk about everything that I've been through in my journey with cancer. Now, isn't that another big responsibility? I could ask myself, okay, I just want to, take a break and not do anything. In fact, I had a long flight and I'm actually still very short of sleep. I do struggle with small, cancer treatments do have, long-term cancer treatments do have long-term mild side effects, which can disturb your quality of life. Now, quality of life is something that they assess a lot, especially in the United States. I had the good fortune to be part of a clinical study. So there are many doctors and researchers sitting over here. So, I do want to share that I was part of the Opdivo/nivolumab clinical trial, which started in 2014 for Hodgkin's disease in UCLA. And I'm number 4 on the ASH papers, out of the 23 people on that study group. I was very, very fortunate. That was a miracle. I do know what happens inside the body. I pay a lot of attention to every single cell in my body. I do thank cinema when it comes to, as much as we are all about storytelling, it's also about understanding how the mind works and how the body works. There's a lot that goes into becoming a character. Because we are trying to bring authenticity to every single character that we play. None of those characters are Mamta Mohandas. It only has a fragment of Mamta in it. So we are taught to how to psychologically interpret a character. അതുപോലെ തന്നെയാണ് how we psychologically understand the psychosis of each and every cell and the behavior of our body. Everybody's body is very unique. One medicine that has worked for another person might not even work for you. And I really liked previous doctor in a but he had said something about moving immunotherapies up the line. In fact, when I started my immunotherapy in 2014. When I was diagnosed in 2009, you do need to understand that I was exposed to chemotherapy, radiation, and transplant for 6 years in my life prior to that. But imagine if something like an immunotherapy, this is where the advancement of medicine, plays a huge role. It's so marvelous. Had I been given immunotherapy or nivolumab as my first line of treatment, in fact, now they're beginning to do that for Hodgkin's disease. And that is amazing. You're introducing something that can lift the blinder and allow your T cells to actually attack your tumors and your cancer cells in a much more healthier environment. Because once you're exposed to chemo and radiation and transplant, there's a lot that has already gone through damage. So there's a lot more work. It's a Herculean task for those immunotherapy medicines to go and do the work that it needs to. So it is amazing. Advancement in medicine is amazing, and I'm forever thankful to research and doctors and everyone who worked tirelessly in order to make this happen. And trust me, it's not a small feat. I think even the nivolumab that I probably received in 2014 was actually the inception of that medicine started, I think, in the Bay Area or something in 1984, and that was the year I was born. Now everybody's sitting and calculating my age suddenly. Yeah. So you see how far the drug has traveled? So it was probably born the same year that I was born. Its formulation or putting the whole thing together. It's a miracle. So when I meet young people young individuals who are fighting cancer or just diagnosed with cancer, I always tell them one thing. Mole or Mone, what the trick is? Stay alive. Because 5 years from now, you're going to have something that is going to be exponentially good for you and possibly a cure. Because I have met people who have given up in those years. They were just 2 years away from getting that first immunotherapy medicine for their condition. Now, what would have gone wrong? Maybe, yes, fate. There's only so much you can fight sometimes. Trust me, there was a time in 2014 when I had actually prayed, I'm happy to go now, just take me because the struggle is too much. But I've made it this far. Now I'm sitting in 26 and I'm so happy that I've made it this far. So the key is to stay alive. And even people who have, I know I've steered away from my topic, which is cinema, but all of this is connected. There is cinema, kadayaki maatam, chalappa in the future. You get what I'm saying? If there are people who have family members who are fighting cancer, I always want to remind you one thing. Please do not brood, cry, be negative. Don't make yourself the bigger problem. Or what you're going through the bigger problem, is the bigger problem. It's not. What they're going through is always the greatest problem. So make sure that you think before you go to someone who has cancer. Don't, there are a lot of people who kind of offload a lot of problems on someone whose daily life is a struggle and you don't even realize it. Try to be strong within yourself before you approach someone who's weak, who's struggling. Because guess what? They're going to appear stronger than you are. So don't take away from the strength that they're showing you, from the positivity that they're giving you. Always make sure that you are the right kind of caregiver. Allengil ningada sympathy aayittu, ningada false care aayittu please povalla. If you can really make a positive difference in their life, if you can enhance their life, if you can bring a smile to their face, only then consider yourself as fit enough to be in the, periphery of a cancer, of a fighter. Because I see a lot of people, it's our cultural imbibed, where people cry, brood, worry. Keep your worry, go cry in the bathroom, come back go watch Jimmy Kimmel or something, have a laugh and just come back to the person. Do that. I mean, because I try to do that for others. So be a powerhouse, believe in yourself, and may cancer never happen to you. But if it does, know that there's a lot of solution out there. There are a lot of good people out there. It's never the end. We can prevent cancer, of course, with early diagnosis. That's what this whole summit is about. We are all talking about it. Awareness is very important. Please remember the things that I have told you today, that other doctors have told you today. And possibly a few years from now, like our doctors have told us, 20 to 30 years from now, we will find a magical method to eradicate cancer, or maybe tune our body, tweak or re-engineer our body in such a way that it will fight the cancer from within. That being said, I will continue to do cinema, and I hope I will be able to tell my story in a different way someday. Every time I tell my story, my life is one of celebration, because I always think that my life was over a long time ago. I was telling Ananya yesterday, once you're dead, the truth is you're free. There are people who talk about getting free, being free. The truth is you're born free. Nobody can take that away from you. So live life like you're free. Live life to the fullest. Be aware of your surroundings. Be good, think good, and do good. And love you all. Thanks for being very attentive to everything that I was saying today. In fact, people who were eating also stopped and put their dishes down. I'm very glad. Evada doctors samsarikkanna karyangale cherudayittu kaanarudhu. Listen to it, because naale it might be you or someone who's close to you. So do take enough knowledge from things like this. Cinema matram poi kandittu hit ആക്കിയാ പോരാ. ഇതുപോലെയുള്ള വളരെ ഇൻഫോർമേറ്റീവ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങൾ നിങ്ങളുടെ ആക്ച്വൽ ലൈഫിന് നാളെ വളരെ ഹെൽപ്ഫുൾ ആയിരിക്കും. യാ സോ ഇതുപോലെയുള്ള ഒരു സദസ്സിൽ I always feel that each and every person who's sitting here is like a family member, is an extension of me. I'm most relaxed in an environment filled with doctors and people who understand the journey with cancer. Trust me, I don't feel this comfortable when I'm around people who are in cinema. Okay, so thank you so much. There are a lot of people that, I mean, no disrespect to cinema. I'm here because of the energy and the power and the courage and in fact, the cinema is what has given me voice. So I'm innately grateful to that, that I landed in cinema accidentally. പക്ഷേ it was the best thing that has happened to me, and I hope I will be part of better stories that will be able to bring cancer and talk about cancer in a positive light and make look like a cancer person's life is a celebration as opposed to, a doom story. Okay, thank you so much, and thanks for listening. Have a wonderful day.